Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host of the Leader Out podcast. Today, for episode 249, just one shy from 250. Wow. I have a lady that I connected to, and I had a podcast last week that is one of the most powerful, inspiring, and goosebump inducing stories. I had the pleasure of having her on the podcast last week where she went over her life. And at the end of it, I said, listen, there's so much content, so many blessings, gifts. They didn't look like a blessing and gift when she was going to them, but now that she's looking at it from the spiritual eye, she sees the beautiful gifts and those the message and all that. So I said, listen, if you're okay with it, we can do one about all of those. And she said, absolutely. And I'm honored to be able to help her, share those with the world. So a little bit about her. She's her name is Saidi, and she lives in a shuttle bus. And right now she's visiting family in Texas for a happy moment, graduation of her niece. Congratulations for that again.
Thank
And
you.
you're welcome. She's doing a multi-authored book with a common friend of ours, Crystal Healy. And this is how we connected. Crystal connected me to her, and she said, "You need to have her on the podcast. She has a pretty damn good story." I said, "Okay, I'm always looking for good stories." And once we had the chat, I said, "Wow, you were damn right." So here she is. And episode one was about overview of her life, and this is number two. And this one, we're gonna talk about. As I said, she went through. She had one of the most challenging paths so far, but yet one of the most enriching in terms of lessons. So, just in a nutshell, she was put for adoption at birth, and then she didn't get along with the host family. She got into drugs, alcohol addiction, multiple times in jail, 12 years as an escort. So many topics we can explore, but we'll do one at a time. So in this one, we're gonna talk about her upbringing, being put for adoption, and all the first part of her life. So, Sadie, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. So good to be here.
Pleasure's
Hello.
all mine. So the first question I want to ask you is, how are you doing today?
I am good. I'm very good. A lot of exciting things going on right now in my life, so I'm just so thrilled. So and yeah, doing great. Thank you.
All right. So how are you feeling now about opening up your heart, opening up your life to the podcast and sharing it? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think there's so much value in this, in sharing where we come from, and helping people to really relate and know that they're not alone in their own challenges and their own struggles, because there's so much shame and guilt around some of the things that we go through, and we get our self-esteem really suffers, and we feel alone and like we're just the only ones. So sharing our
Mm,
stories and hearing other people share their stories and talk about what went on, we know we're definitely not alone. This human journey it's challenging.
sure.
It's really challenging, and we didn't get any instructions when we came in, so we're just kind of like trying to figure it out as we go, and it takes years. So many people just go through a lot of challenges in their younger years, and and not everybody makes it out, of course.
Sure.
So yeah, we all come in to experience such different things, and it's really quite really fascinating, this human life.
Absolutely.
Um,
Before we even dive into your upbringing, one question that just came to mind right now is, at what point did you start having your spiritual awakening?
um, well, I guess it really started, it's things are, they're kind of a blur, during the drugs and alcohol. I remember having some experiences that now I understand were spiritual at the time, or more, like spiritually connected. But given that I was on drugs, I don't know, I didn't have any terminology for it, and I wasn't around people that were of a spiritual, inclination. So um it wasn't really until I got sober, I'd been
Mm.
off the drugs for some time, but then started drinking again, or drinking, and that lasted for like 10 years. But once I got once I quit drinking, then I just, things started really opening up for me. And I guess that started through AA. And I remember the very first time I prayed to, at the time it was God. Now I have different ideas of what I connect with. I'd always been anti-God, I guess, because like, if there's a God, this God is really fucked up, basically. Was my
Yes.
thoughts on, like, there
Yeah.
is something very wrong here.
Or he doesn't like me at all, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. And so and for me, like, I knew there was something more out there, but I didn't, what I'd been given, what I'd been taught didn't resonate with me. So, and I didn't know how to have those conversations or explore within myself, like what I wasn't supported to, like, look further into it. And I just knew that the structure I had been given did not work for me.
Hmm.
But I really wanted to feel like there wasn't any God or anything else. I hoped so much that when we died, we just died, and that was it. There was nothing more out there, because I didn't want to continue on whatever this was. It's like, please don't make me do this again. Please don't make me live again. And if this God thing is true that I've been taught, like the heaven and hell, what if I go to hell? But that didn't feel right either. But I was very suicidal for some time
Wow.
too. But I was so scared to kill myself, because what if that was true? Then I would probably go to hell based on the story I'd been told, So I was like, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. So
Yeah.
there was that fear there, but I really hoped that there was just going to be nothing more, but part of me knew that that wasn't true either. So, once I got sober, and yeah, that's what I was saying when my first time, like, praying, I think things really opened up for me at that point. It wasn't like that, like, golden beam of light at that moment, but there was a shift from when I finally just kind of let go and was like, "Ugh, help me," kind of.
How did you get into that first prayer? Is it something that did it on your own, or was it something that they also encouraged, and that rehab center that you went to get your life back?
Yeah, no, this was definitely through AA, because we talk about in there like a higher power, and people talk
Yeah.
about God a lot, and praying. And, one of the steps is something about, I think we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God or something. I don't know.
Mm.
You think I'd have all these memorized, and maybe I just said it right. I don't know. But and I pushed back on that quite a bit, and the God thing, and people are like, you can talk to a chair, anything can be your higher power. So I really had a hard time with finding a higher power. But it just came in so much that finally at one point I was just like, if there is something out there, please help me. Like, just, yeah. So, and I think that was a breakthrough for me. So instead of pushing back on it, just like, okay, kind of a surrendering piece there, which didn't unfold from that moment, but I just remember it very well.
Okay, that's beautiful. We're gonna talk into that, but now let's backtrack. Go back to the very beginning when you first came into this world. You mentioned that you were left for adoption. Tell us about that. Tell us about your very first memories. How was your life? The very first memories that you remember.
Um, I'm sorry, there's dogs, so if they start
No
barking,
worries. No worries.
okay, thanks. I really thought they'd be quiet. Um, I don't remember much when I was a baby, I remember, of course, but what happened, and this is a practice that they used to do when I was born, I guess. I was put up for adoption, and they would take you from the mother, take the baby from the mother and put them into a foster with foster parents for 6 weeks was kind of the norm. And then your new parents would come pick you up. So at this point, you've lost your mother and that family. Then you go into this new situation. You're like, okay, cool. Here I am. I'm going to do my best to bond with these people, great. Okay. So, okay. Getting settled. And then actually, no, wait, we're going to put you over here now. And by that time, you're just so completely like whacked out. Like, how do you bond again? How do you trust
Yeah.
again? And so I never bonded with my family, um, with my new parents. I just and to this day, like bonding is like something I work with, because my heart, that it shuts you down a lot. So that's part of my journey is finding my way back to trusting and just being able to love openly and not from a place of fear, to just, and that's part of the spiritual path, just learning to trust that there's so much more, a bigger thing here going on, and that love is not about this external thing. I know we talked about that in the first episode, the first podcast. But my first memories were the first there's a couple and they're not pleasant, but the one
Yeah.
of them was just my father. My sister had a different room than I did, and well, I guess this wasn't a first memory. That's not true. This is a different memory, but I remember thinking my father would go in and spend time with my sister, and um didn't come and say goodnight to me in the same way. At least that's my memory. And I remember thinking, like, if I was better, if I was more attractive, which is kind of strange, but if I was just different, then he would come and spend time with me too. And I don't know what, that's a very young memory, and it's very interesting to me. The other one I remember is just kind of watching them all play, watching my father and brother and sister play on the floor. My mother was cooking, and I was just kind of sitting off to the side and just looking at this family and just feeling like I don't fit in here, I just don't belong here. Something is, and just always having that feeling, um yeah, yeah, that's it.
How were they treating you? Were they treating you with love? Did you feel the love coming from them or?
No, I did not. But I don't know. It's weird because I try to look at my family now and how they are with the other children in my family, and they are loving and affectionate. I think they've grown into that more, and I think they've learned a lot from past stuff.
Or
But
age, yeah.
yeah, so it's hard to know what we create in our mind based on how we feel. So it's hard to know what those memories were. I know I saw a picture recently of my mother holding me, and that surprised the heck out of me. I've had this feeling like she never held me, so but I don't know. And my parents split up so young when I was by the age of 6. So then my dad was gone, and I did not feel love from him, and definitely not
Mm.
from my mother. We just didn't get along. So yeah. Yeah, and my family just isn't very affectionate anyway. We don't share about feelings. We don't talk about that kind of stuff, and just like, if you're gonna cry, go to your room. That's not acceptable, and don't get angry. So
How
yeah.
many how many kids did that family have, and with how many kids in that family did you grow up with?
I have one brother who's a few years older, and then my sister who's just barely a year younger than me. She was born after I was adopted. They weren't expecting to have any more children. And here comes my sister. All of a sudden, they're pregnant. And then my sister was born 3 months premature. She was
Wow.
2 pounds and 2 ounces.
Wow.
So any attention that I needed went just directly to her. So
Sure.
that was
Mhm.
another problem. It's just one of those like perfect storm type of deals.
So,
Yeah.
how were you accepted by the kids? Did you feel that they accepted you
Oh,
from the beginning, or you
yeah.
got to get
Yeah.
along well with them?
Yeah, yeah. My sister and I were like best friends. Yeah, we definitely were. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And my brother was just always kind of off on his own, so
Mm.
he's just kind of like that. So yeah.
And how was it going to school and interacting with other kids? Did they bully you or anything, or it was just a normal childhood growing up?
Yeah, no, school, those first 6 years anyway, elementary school and such were fine. I fit in mostly pretty well. And I mean, at a point I did start, I don't know, I started drinking in school in, like, I guess maybe fifth or sixth grade, which is
Drinking
kind of
alcohol
yeah.
at that age? Wow.
I know, when I look
How
back
did you
on that,
how did you get it? Did you sneak it in yourself, or someone would give it to you?
yeah, I had a friend, and her parents had alcohol at the house, and they were often gone, and they let us we would just hang out there. She had a swimming pool, so it was like
Wow.
the hangout for the kids. So, and I know now, my mother had me leave when I was 11 years old. She had me leave the house because she felt like I was a bad influence on my sister. And my mother and I just fought all the time. We just did not get along. And at this point, I had skipped school once. And yeah, was drinking, but I don't know that she knew that, but it wasn't like drinking every day or anything, but and smoking cigarettes and but I see that now. I see 11-year-old children, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I was already like kind of getting into things. And just, the alcohol, it helped me feel good. I felt okay. I felt
Wow.
better. So it immediately, oh, that reminds me, my very first time intoxicated, I was 2 years old at my aunt and uncle's wedding.
What? Holy
Well,
wow.
it was their wedding, and so everyone was giving me little sips of champagne because they thought it was cute. And I guess I went under one of the tables and started singing and was just having a great time. So
Yeah.
right away, I was comfortable with alcohol and comfortable with feeling something different. So, I just kept drinking. And so they put me up in their honeymoon suite to go to bed, and I guess I made a mess all over the bed.
Wow. That's
So
payback
from the
time for
very
them, you
first
know?
experience with alcohol, it didn't go well. Just
Wow. Okay. Okay.
yeah.
And then later on, when you went to, so you said you started drinking at what, grade five, grade six?
Yeah. That was fifth and sixth grade. Yeah, kind
Were
of
you
crazy.
drinking only outside of school, or also in school sometimes?
That's funny that you mentioned that. I almost feel like no, it was just outside of school. Yeah. I did get caught smoking in the bathroom one time in sixth grade,
School.
so that was
Wow.
true. Sixth grade. So
Did,
crazy.
so did that get you into trouble with school? Did you get expelled, or did they call your
No,
parents?
no, I didn't get expelled. I don't know that I even was suspended. I don't know. I don't remember what happened, but yeah, I guess my mother just couldn't deal with me anymore.
Where about in the US did you grow up?
In Salem, Oregon.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I see. And then so you said your mother basically, your adoptive mother told you that you're a bad influence on her younger sister.
Mhm.
So were you kicked out of the house?
Yeah. She had me
Wow.
go and live with family members.
Okay.
She sent me to my aunt and uncle, and I was there for. I didn't even make it through a whole school year with them, and that wasn't going well. Or they just, it wasn't. I guess it wasn't meant to be. I don't know. I don't. That's kind of a blur too. But then I ended up with my grandparents for a short period of time, and
Mm.
then got it. And then my father finally agreed to take me, which was up in Rainier, Oregon, or Goble, really, like kind of cow country, cow pastures. So really strange place for me to be. And then, yeah, so just kind of all over the place there. And that's when it, I guess, started going bad. Well, I was trying to fit in. I don't know. I just didn't really belong anywhere. Nobody really wanted me there, it feels like. It was just more like, okay, this isn't working, so we're going to put you over here. This isn't working, so we're going to put you over here. And my dad and stepmother, even got to the point where they were looking at foster care for me, and wanted to put me on medication. So it was just like, no. Some part of me knew that that was not a good idea. So, and I just was not doing well there. And the I was going to say drugs and alcohol had started, but it was really, it was just kind of like high school experimentation. I mean, we all kind of, not everybody, but it's not uncommon to try out some marijuana, have a few drinks, and that was kind of what I was doing in LSD, but it wasn't like, when I look back, I don't feel like it was crazy usage, but but it wasn't acceptable at all. There was no like, oh, it's okay that you're experimenting, or any sort of support around just being a teenager, and trying to figure myself out. So, and I see that a lot now with other parents that are just like supportive of their children when they're learning, and just, I don't feel like I had any of that at all. And again, because I wasn't really wanted in these places. So anything that I did that wasn't in alignment with what they wanted wasn't supported at all. So
Wow.
finally, before they could put me in foster care or put me on medication, I ran away at 15. And
Wow.
that's when the adventure started.
So where were you sleeping at that time? On the street with friends or
I
shelters?
was always so held by my spirit guides. I know now that they have always been with me. They're caring for me and watching out for me. But at the
Yeah, of
time, I didn't know that, of course.
course.
But I, I, all I knew was to go. We lived way out in the country. So hitchhiking and trying to get a ride into a town was just really, really strange. But somehow I got myself down this hill many miles and across the bridge into Washington. And I knew there was a fair going on. So I went to the fair. I didn't know where else to go. I had nowhere else to go. So I just went to this fair, and I just sitting there on the side of this building. And this couple, a young couple like my age, started talking to me. And they said, hey, you can come and stay at our place if you want. And I was like, okay, cool. So I did. And then ended up being there for a while. So those are some of the ways that I was just always kind of taken care of and held, even though I was out, being crazy. It never got too crazy, I mean, yes, going to jail and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, like, there was never any horrible violent situations. I was in abusive relationships that I guess did get violent, but still, even those could have been so much worse, I feel like, So they're always kind of been held and guarded through all of my
Yeah.
adventures and experimenting.
So when you're
Yeah.
15 on the road, and you're adventurous, so to speak, as you said, how are you making money? How are you eating? Just the basic survival.
That's a great question. Oh, I had been strawberry picking when I lived
Okay.
in the country, and I made over $1,000 in that season, and that's what I ran away with. So I had some
Oh,
money when I left, and then eventually, the guy that I ended up hanging out with, I'm sure was probably helping to take care of me. But eventually I ended up back down in Salem and got a job and started working. So, and then living on my own. And I even tried to go to school to be a nurse, but that nursing school and alcohol don't go too well together.
so when you get back to Salem, did you get in touch with the with your parents?
My aunt, I
Okay.
was definitely in touch with her. Yeah. I don't remember about my mother, honestly. I'm sure she was there in the picture somewhere. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you at any time, so did you get back with your parents, and did you guys came back together and or no?
No, I mean, I see my parents now to this day, but
Mhm.
for some time, I would eventually, down in Salem, that's when things started going badly for me. I ended up
Mhm.
getting into I met somebody who had grown up in California, and it's funny because they were also adopted. Um,
Mhm.
and had the same wound that I did. So, we hit it off great, but he was very he had been to prison many times. He was a tattoo artist. He was again, that kind of darker side thing that I was just very attracted to. I was just attracted to the darkness. And at this point, yeah, it was at this point where I had already been, was using drugs. It was methamphetamines, and had discovered syringes at this point. So was, into that already. So when I connected with this person, they were up from California to try to escape their addiction to
Mhm.
heroin. So, and we know now that just doesn't work. You can't do a geographical and try to get away from your addiction because you take yourself with you. So, it didn't take long before we influenced each other and were both, really into the drugs. And then heroin came into the picture, and things just really went downhill from there. Really went downhill from there. But I didn't know how addictive this substance was. I didn't understand. I don't know that it would have stopped me because it's not something you can describe anyway. You can't really understand the level to which this substance can really take over. And before I knew it, there's a lot of drama in there, but before I knew it, I was fully addicted to this stuff. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't be without it. My body hurt without it. And so I just kept using it, and really thinking it was helping me to sleep. And he didn't explain. Again, I don't think it would have mattered. It just kind of took on a life of its own, and I ended up down in California, which is a really bad place to be on drugs. It's just such a prison state.
Mhm.
And um, it yeah, it's a very different world down there. And so, and I went down there with him, and eventually I don't remember what happened, but I don't know. I think we were living with his parents, and then we moved out of there, and the drugs had gotten really bad, and he ended up going to prison himself. He got picked up for something, I don't know. So I was on my own down there, and just ended up kind of pretty much on the streets and trying to find places to stay. And eventually I don't know, we fast forwarded here now, but I got picked up for something. I don't even remember what was what, but once you get into their system, it's really, you're in it. I remember that first time when I went to jail, and oh, okay, now I remember. I was with some other person, a different guy at this point. Um, um, we were driving around in this car, and he said he'd borrowed it from a friend. And I was like, okay, cool, sure, why not? I don't know. I'm 18 at this point, and we were at a mall down in Orange County, and we had been in the mall, and then we came back out into the car, and before I knew it, there was like cop cars behind us. And I'm talking about a lot of cop cars. I don't know why there was so many that was necessary, but and yelling over their thing, like, get out of the car. And So I was getting out and they had shotguns like pointed at us. Shotguns, like this is crazy to me. I don't know what the hell's going on. I mean, I know we've got drugs, of course, but it seems a little excessive for drugs. But I don't know. You just picture this, like I'm 18. I'm out on the ground, shotguns pointed at me, like what the heck? So they take me away to Orange County Jail, and was it LA County Jail? Scary, 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 scary place. I mean, this place is just a freaking nightmare. A lot of gangsters, down in LA, gangster women that are just like, that's no joke, and I'd never experienced anything like this before. That was very, very scary because there's a lot of violence going on in there. And luckily, this woman in there took me under her wing and was just like, kind of protecting me and watching out for me, because it was one of those where you didn't look anybody in the eye, you don't make any wrong moves, and I don't know anything about this culture, but very, very scary place. Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's like 1,500 women to a dorm there. I mean, that's
What?
like, yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. And the kitchens were shut down. So it was because of the rats. And so we had to eat sack lunches and people were sleeping on the floors. I mean, it was just nuts. It was super crowded and just really
You didn't
not
have your
sanitary.
bed. You were not in a cell. Just
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
like
mm-mm.
1,500 women in one massive room.
No, there was beds, but there was also overflow where some people didn't have beds. They put us at one point in the TV room. They had to shut down the TV room and put us in there on mats on the floor because that was the space that they had. So just crazy, just really weird. But I had been arrested for grand theft auto. This is like I
It's
don't
like the
even know.
video game, eh? Wow.
Yeah. I was like, what the heck? I didn't steal his car. I didn't even know how to drive. And I wasn't driving. So how could they, charge me with that? But they didn't charge me with that. They actually let me go after a few days. So uh was that, I don't know. And then some, I don't know. Am I just rambling now?
No, no, it's fascinating. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
I'll stop.
Um Somehow, I don't even remember how this was, but I ended up in jail again. And, the
So
first,
wait, time out, time out. So in between jails, did you contact any time your parents? Did the police contact your parents because you were no?
no. The police they don't care about that. No,
Okay.
no. And I was 18 at this point. So,
Okay.
I was fine. So, um, and no, at this point, I really didn't want my family to have anything to do with me or to know what I was into.
Sure.
I wasn't one of those types that brought my family into my addiction. It wasn't creating that kind of, like trying to steal money from them or there wasn't that kind of codependency enabling type of thing. They were in another state, and mostly the problem there was my aunt didn't hear from me for so long, and she didn't know if I was alive or dead. So that caused her a lot of stress. But of course, I wasn't thinking about that at the time. I wasn't thinking about anybody but myself.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, but yeah, then in jail another time, and
Mm.
your first time in jail, they let you out on your own recognizance. So they let me out of the jail, and I remember getting out of there, this courthouse, and I thought they made a mistake. I didn't know what the procedures was, and I got out of that place and I just ran. I ran as hard as I could because I was afraid they were going to come after me, like that they had made a mistake. I didn't know why I was being released. I didn't know what own recognizance meant. I didn't know anything about the system. And so I just ran and I was like, okay,
So
cool.
what does
I'm
that
done.
mean? They released you after your own cognizant. What does that mean?
On your own recognizance means that they're trusting you to come back to fulfill your obligations, which for me, that was probation,
Oh,
because it was like a misdemeanor of some sort. I think maybe like possession or something. But so yeah, you're just kind of in there overnight. You go to court, and then because it's your first offense, they let you go. But you're supposed to come back and check in with a probation officer. You're on probation for like 6 months, a year, something like
How
that.
often do you have to come back?
Yeah, it's like every month, maybe. I don't know.
They
I
give you a
don't know.
specific date and time, or whenever you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they did. And they gave me a paper that had all of that information, and I didn't know, I didn't understand, I guess. I didn't read it. Um, so I thought I was done with all of that. I didn't understand I was supposed to check in with anybody. So I got stopped again, which is what happens when you're on drugs in Southern California. The police are just, they will stop you for anything. So when they ran my ID, they discovered like, wow, okay, you were supposed to be on probation and you haven't checked in. So now you're there's some term for it, but
Like in French, we call it repeat offender, something like this.
well, there's that. Yes, yes, for sure. I was that, but like I had absconded or I don't know, something. But anyways, so because I had already, because I wasn't following through with my probation thing, now I had to go to jail. And this time it was 90 days, I believe.
Wow.
Is that correct? Um, and then I got out and was supposed to go to probation again. And that wasn't going well because you get tested, like drug tested. And maybe it was 30 days. The first time is 30 days. So I was in there for like 18 days or something, get back out. And then, yeah, if you can't get off the drugs, you can't go see your probation officer because you're going to get tested. And if you fail your drug test, you're going to go to jail. So of course you don't go see your probation officer.
Wow.
So I got arrested again, and the same thing, like, okay, and now this is my third time. So now it's just an automatic 6 months. So now I'm in there for 6 months and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's just like, it just keeps getting worse. And I got out of that and still I just couldn't get it together. I was going to different, I went to different detoxes and rehabs. I just kept falling back into, oh, that's what it was. After that, I ended up in a rehab because they let you out and you go to a rehab. But for whatever reason, I still just couldn't stay clean and got back on the drugs. And the same thing. The next time I was arrested, I was going to go to prison, that's the next step. So I knew I couldn't do that. This reminds me of a weird story. That last time that I went to jail, that's right, my PO knew where I was. She went to a hotel room that I was at and said that she had found I don't remember what, like meth or something. She's like, you have this drug. And I was just like, I don't, she's like, I found this in your stuff. And that wasn't true because we weren't doing that drug. I mean, we were doing drugs, but it wasn't that. So like, I don't know if they have some sort of quota to fill, but this
She was
is
trying to
going,
frame you.
she did frame me. And it was her word
Wow.
against mine. It's like we did have drugs, but it wasn't that drugs. I ran into a lot of police officers down there and probation officers that did that kind of stuff. And I don't understand why. But yes, yeah, they're very deceitful and lying. So my friend did 18 months in prison because of that thing that this probation officer pulled, because she was
Wow.
with me in the room too and was also on probation. So really not cool. But I also recognize now, if she had not put me in jail that day, who knows where I would have been. It was not going well, so I do feel like that stint in jail was a lifesaver, like thank you for getting me off the streets, because
There's
it was not.
always a reason, a purpose. Maybe at the time it happens, we don't understand it, but later, when we will, absolutely. So tell us, what was if you can say, put it that way, the day-to-day life in jail? What time do you wake up? Do you have a time that you wake up, or was it like you wake up whenever you want, or they just come knock on your door, or screaming like in the movies at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock?
No, the lights come on at a certain time in the morning, which is very early. And it's just kind of annoying because you want to be sleeping in there.
Sure.
Of course, you don't want to be doing anything else. So no, the lights just come on early. maybe the doors will open to let you out into the main area. I was in, like, each one was kind of set up a little differently, but mostly you were in like a pod of 16 little rooms, and there'd be a day area out in the front, or out in the center, and each person had their own room.
You're in your own private room?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, and I've been in different jails also where it's all like a big dorm thing and it's like bunk beds. So I've been in that too. This one, I can think it kind of depends on the amount of time that you're doing.
And also
If you're
the cause what you're there for. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, probably. So everybody kind of wants to get to these private rooms. So at this point in my illustrious jail career, I was getting my own private room. So I was
Yahoo.
really moving up in the world there. Yeah, it was great. So, but yeah, they let you out, and sometimes they don't. Depending on whatever they're feeling like doing, you can be in your room for a very long time. Like they'll only let you out to have food, or they put the food in the room so you don't get out of your room, which is it's just not pleasant. You want to be able to move around a little bit. So and this last time that I was in jail, there was this woman that had taken a liking to me, and we were getting along fine, but then it turns out that she wanted she wanted more from me. She
Ah,
wanted me to be her girlfriend, I guess, basically. And I was not interested in that. So it got really ugly, and she was not okay with that. And so she kind of turned the dorm against me, which is really weird. And I was getting some really bad threats, and I think it was going to go kind of badly. I don't think good things were going to come out of that. And I would have to stay in my room. I couldn't come out because I would have gotten beat up. But then I feel like they were making moves to come into my room. And that was just very scary, because once that happens, there's not, it's not. And we actually did get in an altercation. And luckily, this last time, where I knew something was going to happen and something was going down and something violent was going to happen, they called my name, and I was going down into the hole. They were putting me in the hole in solitary, because I had an altercation with this woman. So that was just their protocol, even though I didn't start it. A fight had broken out. So they put me down in solitary confinement, and that was really crazy. And but luckily, this is a funny part of the story. Within 2 hours, the drug treatment facility I had been waiting for came to get me. So I was only in solitary for 2
wow.
hours, and then they got me out of there. So, because you get put on a wait list, I knew I was going to go into this drug treatment, but it was whenever they came to get me. It ended up being on the tail end of my time there. So I was in jail for quite a while that time, but they finally came and got me right after I went into solitary. So I was just like, awesome. But
Wow.
but yeah, that jail, it's I wanted to talk about this a little bit. It is the worst assault on your freedom. How you can just be really like walking down the street, and then just out of nowhere, because a cop decides to stop and talk to you, they have absolute control over what happens to you, and they just can take you and do whatever they want and put you in jail, for you have no say in the matter. Your rights, it's their word against yours. And there were times when yes, I was living on the on the dark side and in the outskirts, and I was, doing drugs, yes, but it doesn't mean that they have a right to just do whatever they want, and nobody believes you when you're the one that's not following the rules necessarily, but they're not following the rules. It's this power dynamic that is just really. There was my first time or two in jail, I went really nuts because just because I couldn't do anything. You can't get out, they take you and they put you there and there's nothing you can do and nobody will listen to you. And it was just, it was a nightmare, and it's a horrible, horrible, horrible experience. And if you haven't gone through it, people don't understand and don't appreciate it. And so I don't know. I just wanted to share that because it was such a
Thank you.
horrible, horrible
Yeah.
experience.
That is absolutely true. I've had a couple of other gentlemen on my podcast that went to jail for other reasons. And yeah, we did quite a few episodes just talking about that. It's always fascinating. And we'll definitely do another part next week or in a couple of weeks. But let's wrap this up because, there's so much to talk and I don't want to cut it off in the middle. So wow, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing it. And I'm so looking forward for the next part so we can dive even deeper into that and other aspects that you went through, and also talk about your book and all these positive things you've been doing. So we'll save that for part three. So thank you for opening up, your life for us in this podcast. We're just starting. It's going to be an ongoing conversation, I believe. So yeah. So thank you, Saidi. Keep
Thank you.
very welcome. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world with your wisdom, with your knowledge, your presence. And I'll talk to you soon, very soon.
Great.
Have a wonderful day, my friend. Take care.
Thank
Bye
you, you
bye.
too.
Bye bye.
Bye.